Hello, everybody. I'm about to answer a bunch of questions submitted by folks like you to the email address questions@rahdo.com. And by all means, folks, if anything I talk about or my wife talks about, because she sometimes shows up on these as well, prompts any further questions from you, well, you know what to do. Questions@rahdo.com is the email address. Keep them coming, folks. I want to hear your cues so I can AM. And speaking of which, let's get right to it. But, folks, I'm going to talk about several different topics today, and if any of them don't really strike your fancy, don't worry. There are links down in the show notes that let you jump around from question to question so you can listen to just the parts you're interested in. All right, sound good? Then let's go. Okie doke. Helmet says, just hearing the episode 98 with a question about the new setting for Pandemic Legacy. Hypothetical, what would be great new settings to use the Legacy system in? What do you think about a city simulation where the cubes represent fire, crime, school needs, garbage, etc.? In order to win, you have to take care of the results, the cubes, and also perform tasks to clear the card, which result in being out of the game. You win if you clear a certain amount of tasks. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a great idea, Helmet. I love that. I can think of one game that kind of abstracted that way. I can't remember the name of it now. It was basically a pandemic. One was the first pandemic clones, and it was basically set in ancient Israel. And the cubes represented the spread of corruption, and we were prophets trying to travel around and stopping the spread of corruption. So it was very abstracted. And while the subject matter didn't really resonate with me, I thought, oh, well, that's really cool. That you could represent something much more abstract, like moral failings in people by the spread of cubes and treating it like I thought that was actually really neat. So I think it's a great idea, Helmet. Joseph says, many deck builders, most recently Four Horsemen, include trashing as a means to remove weaker cards from the player's deck. While used cards go neatly into a discard pile, few, maybe no games have a discrete trash pile for cards removed that way. Actually, that's not true. If I recall correctly, at least in the original first printing of Dominion, there was literally a card that said trash on it. And you were supposed to take trash cards and put them on that card that said the word trash. Maybe they don't do that anymore. And maybe I'm remembering wrong. But anyway, I personally love it when games have this mechanism. Can't help myself. I just corrected Joseph because he said mechanic. But anyway, I also wish that there was a clear space to put these cards rather than aside or back in the box. What are your thoughts on this? Also, can you think of any game that's done something interesting with their trashed cards? There's definitely Asonia, I think, is a very good deck builder where, I've got my deck of things that generate resources and I got to get the right resources in hand to buy other cards and I got to worry about bad cards in my deck and all of that. But one of the things you can do is if you collect a certain number of cards, you can trash a collection of them to make one of the ones that you're trashing a permanent stays on the board forever. It's a simple thing, but it's revolutionary in terms of, because it's curving so many things. It's giving you a permanent, always hands-on resource, thinning out your deck at the same time, trying to, make set collection a more tangible and meaningful. It's brilliant. It's a simple little thing. And I'm sure there's other games. I mean, surely the easiest thing you can do with a trash pile is say, oh, it's still a resource in the game. And you can still, and I know, I can't think of any, but I know I've played games where there are cards that let you go back into the trash pile and take cards out of it. I mean, gosh, I feel like we just played one just the other day that did this. Oh, gosh, what was it? So I know I've seen that in games, too. I have to admit, I never put them back in the box anyway. Whenever Jen and I play any one of these games, there's just a big, sloppy, messy pile of cards up at the top of the board where we just keep throwing them. And every once in a while, if we have to go look through, we have to sort stuff out and whatnot, but no, I think it's great. I think the idea, I think that's the true secret sauce of why Dominion revolutionized an industry, because it put so smartly at the time, completely counterintuitive notion of, hey, after I get things, I want to hold on to things. I want to hoard things. This is something that people have to unlearn when they first start playing Dominion or some Dominion-derived game, that no, it's a bad thing to have too much stuff because it clogs you up. And the crap stuff keeps you from getting to the good stuff you want. And, hey, it's a lesson for life that don't hoard things. Only keep that which sparks joy. Or in the case of board games, that which sparks victory points, and get rid of the other stuff. I mean, it's such an important, valuable life lesson. And it's contrary to games in general, which have traditionally been all about satisfying and rewarding avarice. Gotta get them all, Pokemon style, because in most games you have infinite storage, right? And there's never any complexity in the logistics of maintaining an infinite amount of stuff, because the game takes care of all that for you, because it abstracts the real world away. So no, I agree. It was brilliant of Donald X. Vaccarino to put that front and center. That success of this game is as much about getting rid of stuff as acquiring new things, and I love it. And yeah, anytime a game comes up with something smart to do with it, that's great. That said, I don't personally feel the need to have a section of the board that literally has the word trash, or a picture or an icon of a trash can on it. I'm fine throwing them back in the box. Or, as Jen and I do, into the big, sloppy, ugly pile of cards that's at the end of the table that we don't look at until we're putting the game away. Next up, which of my top X equal as many as I like games would I like to see made into a roll and write, flip and write? And how do you imagine that game working in its new form? Oh, wow, that's a good question. Let's go to ranked.rahdo.com. Boop. And it's going to come up here any second. I think. There we go. So, what would I like to see? Would I like to see a roll and write? I understand flip and fill and roll and write. I mean, to me, there's functionally not enough of a difference to make the distinction between a roll and write and a flip and write. They're both random in writes. Some random seed, whether it's a die, whether it's a deck of cards, whether it's a bag I draw stuff out of, whether it's a tower that things fall through, doesn't matter. Some random seed generator that then prompts me to write things on a piece of paper. Random and write. So, would I like to see a random write of Pandemic, my number one game of all time? That is a really interesting idea. Huh. Because, okay, it's supposed to invoke Pandemic, and it could certainly be done. But I don't think it would be anywhere near as elegant as Pandemic, which is, I mean, because the thing about roll and writes that I think makes them really special is the concept of permanence. That, well, I'm going to put aside the ones that, come with dry erase markers and wipe off boards that you can, I can write things down and then I can erase them. I mean, that's fine if a game does that, but I think that's kind of eliminating one of the things that truly makes a roll and write special. The fact that, hey, once I write a thing down, that's it. I can't undo it. There's no undos, right? And of course, Pandemic is all about undoing things and then redoing things. Oh, I got rid of those cubes and now they're back. And now I got rid of those cubes and now they're back. So what would it mean to have a roll and write? It would have to be a simpler map where you can't stop the spread. It would change the game so much as to be meaningless. So I don't see, and it could be a limit of my imagination, quite frankly. But again, it has to be a game that responds well to the fact that once something has happened, it can't be undone. And a lot of games aren't about that. And that's what makes roll and writes different. And that's what makes it an interesting genre, especially when developers do something with that in mind and leverage that. And off the top of my head, maybe I'm just too dense, but I can't think of that for Pandemic. Castles of Burgundy. Well, there is a perfectly fine Castles of Burgundy roll and write. It was quite nice. Because, in Castles of Burgundy, once you put the tiles down, you tend not to get rid of them. So Castles of Burgundy is perfectly well suited for a roll and write, and it turns out the Dice of Burgundy is excellent. Gloomhaven. I have halfway done a Gloomhaven roll and write in my head. Probably never come out, but I've got thoughts. Agricola. Ooh. Yeah, I think Agricola would really lend itself to the roll and write thing because, it totally would. In fact, why hasn't it happened? Surely it must have happened by now, right? No, it hasn't. That's ridiculous to me now that I think of it. There is no roll and write version of Agricola. There was the streamline stripped down, all creatures great and small or big and small. But a roll and write of Agricola would be amazeballs. So far I've got one. Let's see. Trois, we have one. Kinda, sort of. Nations. Nations would definitely work too. I would love to see a roll and write of Nations. Again, we have Nations, the dice game, but not the roll and write. I think that could be really cool. Peloponnese. Yes, Peloponnese. You know what? The longer I go, the more I think most of my games I would love to see it. Because I would love to see all of my favorites with the added twist of saying, hey, once you've done something, you have to live with it for the rest of the game. You can't undo it. You can't rebuild the thing you tore down. You can't recover the thing you sold. There's only so many times you can do a thing, and then it's done. So that's the thing. A lot of times, roll and writes have their cake and eat it too. They say, oh yeah, look, here's 36 coins. Every time you get a coin, circle it. When you spend it, cross it out. That's fine. There's a nice, clean elegance to it. But they do that knowing that it is very unlikely that anybody will ever earn more than 20 coins in the game, right? It's just a really weird situation where they would ever get close to the maximum number of coins. And see, to me, that's missing a trick. That's the designers not looking at that as an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? In this game, you can never have more than 12 coins. And you can never spend more than 12 coins. So every coin you collect and every coin you spend is terrifying, is so laden with gravitas and purpose. But they don't do that. They just say, oh, look, you effectively have infinite coins because you'll never fill up this many holes. And that's fine, but then all that's doing is the roll and write is just recreating what the original game did, as opposed to leveraging the strength of a roll and write. When there are only 12 circles I can circle and then cross out, it very quickly turns in, wow, money is more important in this game than any game I've ever played before. Because there's this hard limit, and the limit is reinforced not necessarily by the theme, but just by the fact that there are only 12 circles I can fill in on the board. And that's an example of somebody using roll and writes to really great effect to do something new and different. And very few people do it. But so with that in mind, I would wager probably 2/3 of my favorite games would make great roll and writes, especially if people wanted to really leverage the art form. So I'll stop right there. Okay. Mike says, we're seeing quite a few video games made into board games. Which board game, based on a video game, is the best one currently? Which purely video game IP that is not already made into a board game do you think would make the best board game? I know the answer to that one off the top of my head. It is mind-boggling to me that nobody has worked with Electronic Arts, I assume, maybe Maxis, I don't know who, to make Sims the board game. One of the most successful video games in human history. We've got a Minecraft game. We've got a Call of Duty game now. Why do we not have a Sims board game? We have life simulators. But and here's the deal. We do have a Sims, The Sims, the board game, except it's completely hidden in plain sight. It's Dungeon Pets. Ever since I played Dungeon Pets for the first time and was so struck by the brilliance of Vlaada Chvátil's design that gives you these creatures, the pets, these cute, adorable, fantasy monster babies that you have to grow up so they can become strong, powerful monsters. And every round, there's just this brilliant system that they have needs that have to be met. And everything I'm doing is about trying to meet the needs of these things so they can grow big and strong. And I can predict some of what they can do. I can even influence some of what they do, but they'll always surprise me. And I have to be prepared for those surprises. That's the frickin' Sims right there. And just taking that idea and turning it into The Sims, how has that never happened before? It's amazing to me. All right, but anyway, that would be my answer to the second question. The first question, what is a game? Dark Souls, right? That's the first thing that pops into my head. Yeah, there's a bunch of Dark Souls games. I'm only doing that so that because I'm betting there's a family. All right, there you go. Video game theme, not all right. Theme, boss battle. All right. I'm just saying integrates with. Come on, classification, Satanic. I don't want video game themed Dark Souls. I'm pretty sure there must be a family that's just video games, right? Video game adaptation. All right, Call of Duty. It's the second one I can think of because it's the most recent one I played. Call of Duty, the board game. Please, come on. Publishers, make our life easier. They have no interest in making my life easier. All right. Is there a geek list then? All right, let's just do advanced search. Advanced search for geek list that has the word video game in the title. No, not advanced search, that search. Board games. Geek lists, there we go. And now, video game. Alrighty, and then I have to say, no, the title, just the title. I don't care if it's in there. Alrighty, so that will get right. New board game choices from hardcore video game player. Best video game adaptation in your collection. That one has 7. That might be a good one. Video games, all right. Video game thrift store. 3-minute video game list. Top 10 video game board games. Is there a way I can sort this by the most successful or the most entries? Nope. 10 board game. I would have sworn somebody would have made the definitive list of every single video game themed board game. And I'm really surprised to see that I'm not seeing one here. And then video reviews, that's not even. Board game implementation of professional video games. All right, you know what I need to do? I need to search for the word item, whatever has the most. Item. Alrighty, so 7, 12, 7, 47. Thrift store bargain finds. Video game thrifts. What? That's wrong. How is this so hard to find? The 3-minute. All right, that's just their video list. All right, okay, I need to change this to say just video game in that order. Stop talking about this other stuff. Alrighty, so now give me a geek list. The first annual video game draft. Is that one? How can this not exist? Video game quotes. Why is that on Board Game Geek? 10 items because somebody made a top 10 list. I am really disappointed that this is so hard to find. And now we're just getting into old lists. Oh, they are sorted by date. All right, well, let's just take a look at a few of them. All right, Bloodborne, Fallout Shelter, Doom. Yeah, these are old lists. I can't believe this. Why is this so hard to do? Civilization, Hawken, Devil May Cry. That was a pretty good game, except it was too long. Jeepers. Well, folks, if you want to have a super hyper popular geek list that everybody will flock to and will get so many thumbs, it'll have one of the longest, one of the most used ones on Board Game Geek. Start making this list because it seems like nobody has done it. But you know what? Just zipping through these things, I did see one. I did see this, Anno 1500, that makes me know the answer. Okay, I don't have to find the list after all. Plus, it seems like most of these are just things that are kind of board game-like as opposed to actual translations. It doesn't matter, though. By far, hands down, the best board game that is an implementation, a translation of an original video game franchise is Anno 1800 by Martin Wallace. Right? Where is that in my rankings? If I go to games.rahdo.com and I wait for that to open up while I get a drink of water. Whee! Right, Anno 1800. A-N-N-O. I should have just done this from the get-go. That is my 58th highest ranked game. It's my 58 out of my top 100. And I am sure there's not going to be another video game that is higher. Maybe video game inspired, maybe video game like, but not a video game. Yes, Anno 1800 is the best. And it's interesting because it demonstrates what is absolutely important to be successful at translating a property, an intellectual property, from one genre or one format to another. And it's something that so many creative people mess up because they think, I just have to slavishly adhere to what was originally there and just try to recreate that in a new form. And you do that and you create something soulless. And something that doesn't take advantage of the new format. Surely, one of the greatest examples of our lifetime of a property being transformed from one to another is the original Fellowship of the Ring. And the Rings trilogy really as a whole, but Fellowship mostly. Because they were beholden to the spirit of Tolkien, but not a literal beat-by-beat interpretation. And I remember when the movie first came out, there were so many people that were so angry that Éowyn was at the ford of whatever with the horse water and stuff like that, because that's supposed to be somebody else. And yeah, but they improved on the storytelling. They made this a better 2.5-hour-long movie than 800-page book, because they realized the storytelling in a different medium benefits from a different combination of the playing pieces. And the same thing is true for Anno 1800. Anno 1800 all but destroys. I mean, I can imagine somebody else trying to translate Anno 1800, which is basically something that's inspired by the original SimCity, but just trying to recreate that in board game form. I've played games like that. That's not what Martin Wallace did. What Martin Wallace did is took the heart and soul of Anno 1800 and translated it into a board game that kept that feel, but did new and interesting things that leveraged the platform he was on. And it's all the better for it. So I'm going to go with Anno 1800, and why don't we have The Sims yet? Okay. Another Mike says, want to get your thoughts on the increased use of AI technology in board games. The most recent example is Terraforming Mars Prelude 2. The company's been very forthcoming about using AI-generated art as a starting point for all assets, and then having artists clean them up, so to speak. Many are vocally against this practice, calling it blatant stealing from the original source material, while the AI is using source material the AI is using for its reference. Do you agree? What are the implications of AI use for other aspects in the future? Writing, rules, game design, etc. Well, first of all, the implications for AI across the board, for all of humanity, doesn't matter what you do, is in 100 years we're all going to be out of a job. That's the implications. AI, in 20 years from now, you're going to be able to go onto whatever the equivalent of a browser is at that point, probably something maybe on your face in a pair of glasses or whatever it is, and say, I would like to see a run-through of Anno 1800, a demonstration of Anno 1800 done in the style of a Rahdo runs-through, but done by Judi Dench. And they'll wait 30 seconds and boom, they'll have it. And they'll be able to watch that. Because, if all my videos haven't disappeared from the internet, they will understand exactly how I did run-throughs, exactly what my cadence were, exactly what I focused on. They'll be able to make a pixel-perfect recreation of Dame Judi Dench. And they'll be able to understand and grok the rules. And heck, if they want to, they maybe even be smart enough to put in a virtual Apollo to correct some virtual mistakes that they put in, because if it's a Rahdo runs-through, there's going to be some goofs. That's coming. That's the reality. There's no getting around that. And so what that requires, and this is normally something I talk about in the other half of the podcast, about, the future of humanity and why universal basic income is absolutely essential, and the sooner we work towards that, the better. But, it's coming for board game artists, it's coming for board game designers. Here's the deal. Star Trek models what this future is. As I remember thinking, oh, wow, what an interesting idea. The holodeck in Next Gen, nobody blinks twice. You can just walk into the holodeck and say, computer, create a Sherlock Holmes mystery for us to solve in a half an hour. And it just does. And it just creates Moriarty, and then when, Moriarty becomes sentient and all that. But regardless, it just does it, and nobody thinks twice about it. And then you think, oh no, in the future, all the writers and artists, they've disappeared. The human creative spark is gone. But no, because it was so brilliant that it wasn't until Star Trek Voyager that they started mentioning how Tom Paris loved to dabble in holo novels, I think is what they called it, or something like that. Because even though the computer could make something that would be instantly satisfying and just as good as something created by a human, with proper characters and motivations and plot beats and character growth and 3-act structures, and it'll be able to recreate all of that. It doesn't change the fact that people still want to tell stories, and that other people will gravitate towards, oh, Tom did that one? Hey, let's fire up that holo novel he made, or whatever they called them on Voyager. That's the future. When we're talking about AI art, yes, right now, as of today, board game artists could get replaced en masse. Does that mean people who have devoted their life to making art will suddenly say, well, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm going to stop making art? No, it doesn't. They will still have that urge, that itch to create. The problem is they are going to be muscled out of the economy, or they are going to be too expensive, which is why. And that's not going to happen just to artists, and just to lawyers, and just to radiologists, and just to construction workers, and just to garbage truck drivers, and to literally every single, almost without exception, very few exceptions, almost every single job that exists. Within 100 years, computers will be able to do it better, more efficiently, and cheaper than us. That's the reality. It's coming. And nothing will stop it other than nuclear apocalypse. So we're just in the baby steps of it. And it's, and just like every technological advance, it's going to hurt some people sooner than others. And we are going to have to adjust. It's just this time we're going to have to adjust on a species level, rather than what we've done in the past, which was just on a socio-economic level. Eventually when driverless cars come, all the drivers are going to have to find a new thing, and that just affects one facet of humanity. It's going to affect everybody eventually. It's just, one of the first people it's going to affect is artists and writers and stuff like that. But that's all hand-wavy talking about the future. Talking about the here and now, let me tell you where I come down. We actually did a run-through for the Prelude 2 thing. And, we were paid to do it. And when we accepted the job, we didn't know they were doing AI art. And when we found out after we posted the video, I think the day after we posted the video, that, there's AI art in the game, I contacted Indie Boards and Cards and said, hi, tell you what, I'd like to take the video down and you just don't have to pay us. And, good luck with the project. We're just going to take it down. And because at this point, I'm not comfortable with contributing to having artists go hungry. It's unavoidable. It's going to happen. But I do not want to be a cog in that machine that makes it happen. Not until we get to a truly equitable society where the benefits of AI spread to benefit everyone and not just the super hyper rich that are trying to create AI right now so they can become more super hyper rich. And that's not fair. A lot of people are pursuing AI for the betterment of humanity. I know that. I'm over exaggerating for effect. But me putting up a video that legitimizes artists not being hired to do work, or fewer artists not being hired to do work, I don't necessarily need to be a part of that. So I took a bath on that because Ruel did the video and I still paid Ruel his full price and it came out of my pocket instead of the publisher's pocket. So that tells you, I think, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I lost a lot of money on that. Ruel actually had to film the video twice, and that meant Paulo had to goof check it twice. So I had to pay Paulo double. And I still paid him. And I paid Ruel, even though I'm not getting paid because we took the video down, because I do not want to contribute to that, even though I know it's going to happen. So that's kind of where I am. We have said no to other games where the developers were forthright. Now, I do not deny them their right to do it. I'm not even sure about the claim that it's ethically dubious to do it, because I don't know that I agree that it's theft. Because my understanding of how AI scraping works is that, it's not like Midjourney has a quadrillion, gigabillion bytes worth of art just sitting around and it just grabs the art and smushes it together. All that Midjourney and other systems like it have done is replicated the same thing that every single human on this planet has ever done. By the time I'm 5 years old, I have been exposed to millions of images. Things I see in the real world, things I see on TV, things I see in books, things I see everywhere. Millions of images. And what I've taken away from all of that is a general understanding of what an apple is. An apple is red. An apple is round. Often they have stems. Sometimes, if it's a cartoon, it'll have a little leaf on it. If Picasso did it, it is weird kind of trapezoidal features. If it's a Monet, it's probably going to have more of a desaturated look to it. There's a lot of different ways an apple could be, and I've been exposed to millions of them. And that has formed my idea of what an apple is and all the different ways I could express an apple if I had the manual dexterity and the brain chemistry to, put it down on a piece of paper and pencil. Or really, if I had the skill that came through practice and I had the discipline and all that. But I have all that raw stuff. That's what Midjourney did. Midjourney, being trained, all it did is it looked at billions of pictures and said, all these pictures were labeled with apples. You know what I noticed? They're all red or green. And they all have this basic shape. And over time, what Midjourney did is it made note that apples are round and they're red and they have stems. And when they're done as a cartoon, they always put one leaf on them. And sometimes they have a worm coming out of them. You'll see that more often in cartoons. You won't see it as often if it's photoreal. You'll never see it if it's done, but it was never done by Picasso. So Midjourney has just literally, in the same way that an infant to a 12-year to a tween looks at billions of images and that lets them form an understanding of what the world looks like. That's what Midjourney has done. So it understands what an apple looks like and can recreate an apple a million different ways depending on how you want that apple to look. And I have a hard time thinking that's theft. That the act of looking at something and noting, oh, you made an apple look red, is me literally stealing from you if you drew a picture of a red apple. And to me, whether I looked at it and noted that you made a red apple or a computer looked at it and noted you made a red apple, to me it's splitting hairs. So I don't know about the unethicalness of it, but I do know that I do not want to, because we do not live in that perfect Star Trek utopia I'm talking about. If we did, I'd be all for it, because people would make art because it inspires them, because they want to express themselves, and people will find that art, and it will be a more pure form of art that's not driven by commerce. But the reality is, everything in our lives is driven by commerce right now. 200 years from now, provided we make it as a species, capitalism will be viewed as one of the greatest necessary evils of human history, and we'll be well past it, because everybody's needs will be met and people will do things because it inspires them, not because they need to do it to pay their bills. But we're a few hundred years away from that. And in the meantime, I do not want to contribute to somebody not being able to pay their bills. And it's interesting too. I'm still trying to find my way around this. It's funny. I've seen a lot of people say, well, you know what? It's okay to use AI for concept art, just not for the final art. And to me, that's kind of crap. That's kind of a garbage argument, because as somebody who worked in the video game industry for 20 years, I worked with a lot. Some of the most talented artists I ever worked with were concept artists, and none of their art ever made it into the game. Ever. Mike McCarthy, maybe the greatest artist I ever worked with. A couple of his art pieces were so good we put them on posters in Fable. But for the most part, he just inspired the rest of the team to make stuff. And every time somebody says, well, you know what, it's probably okay to use it as just for concept art to inspire everybody else. Well, that's just taking work away from concept artists. And to me, that's just as problematic as saying, well, yeah, do it for the final shipping game too. So it's coming. There's no avoiding it. But we don't have to rush headlong into it, right? We can try to embrace our future in a way that doesn't destroy people along the way. And that's kind of how I look at it. And that's why I lost hundreds of dollars on Terraforming Mars Prelude 2, because I had to pay Paulo and, out of my own pocket to bury a video. So that's kind of where I come on. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there you go. Okay, where are we next? Nigel says, during the recent Kickstarter campaign for new Terraforming Mars content, Stronghold Games revealed they have and will continue to leverage AI-generated content. In the development of the project, Travis Worthington of Stronghold, later interviewed by Polygon, defended this decision, saying, quite honestly, the use of AI can be a cost saver. But I think the biggest reason why Frix Games, and quite honestly ourselves, are using this is not the cost savings, but the development time. You can always equate time with cost, but the time to go through and bring a product to market can be decreased dramatically by using generative AI. And that's an interesting point. Everything I just said in the last comment, I mean, we're all trying to figure this out. This is literally a man-made extinction level event for all intents and purposes. We have created the tools for the demise of our own creative outlet. Not ourselves as a species, but our creative outlet, because we work commerce and capitalism into everything like it's a panacea that will solve everything. When in fact, no. Capitalism, and I'm sorry, this is really kind of getting more into the personal Q&A portion, but it's kind of bleeding into gaming, which is, we're in the gaming half of the podcast. Capitalism has always been, at best, a necessary evil. And AI is going to lead us to a future where it's not necessary anymore. And it's going to be great, but it's going to be ugly getting there. And so when I say I personally do not want to contribute by normalizing an artist being put out of work, or where it used to be 3 artists to do the work, now 1 artist can do it. Same thing was true in the agricultural industry. My family comes from agricultural union raising. That's my family background. Trying to organize and stop the exploitation of seasonal migrant workers. That's what my grandfather was famous for. And my mother traveled her whole childhood up and down California and through Mexico, just helping migrant workers. And I'm sorry, that's not just giving you some context for where I come from. And it's telling how, with every new technological advance, more food can be produced with the labor of fewer people. And that's a net positive for society. But it's a net negative for the people who made their livelihoods picking fruit or whatever it might be. And the same thing is now happening. It used to be, to make a Terraforming Mars Prelude 1, they needed 3 artists to get X amount of work done. Now they need 1 artist doing paint overs of what Midjourney gives them. And it is, as they say, a time is money consideration to make. And why, one might argue, and it's a fair argument, am I favoring the artist and trying to ensure that I don't contribute to their suffering, but I'm not favoring the game producer? Because surely, if a game producer can produce a game faster and cheaper, that helps them and their family and their livelihood, right? So shouldn't I take them into account too? I think that's a fair point. Until you notice the fact that Terraforming Mars has raised over $1.5 million. And now I know it's not like they've made $1.5 million in profit. I realize that. But at the end of the day, if I have to make a choice, I am going to favor the little guy over, let's not call it the big guy, let's call him the slightly less little guy. Because it's not like Stronghold is some titan of industry. It's not like they're Exxon or, Monsanto or something like that. They're still just a small little group of people trying to make sure they can pay everybody. There's no money in board games. Nobody, or almost nobody's getting rich off of board games. Very, very few people are. And so I'm aware of that. But at the end of the day, if I have to choose one or the other, I will always choose the smaller fish rather than the medium fish, or certainly not the big fish. And so this is a fundamental dichotomy. It helps Stronghold to be able to make things faster, higher quality, cheaper. It breaks the traditional paradigm. Okay, do you want it faster, cheaper, or better? Pick 2. Right? I remember Mike Byspec, a producer on one of my early games, teaching me that core concept of production. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's so perfect. And it informs everything. AI flips that all on its head. Maybe not yet, but it will get to the point where it completely destroys that. Hey, you know what? It will be cheaper, it will be faster, and it will be better. It will be all 3 things. Or at the very least, as good as, if not better. So, of course, it's in a publisher's best interest to ensure their ability to continue to make more games. But it's also in an artist's best interest to ensure that their art can go. And I guess coming back to Star Trek, is it a needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one? Yes. And that is why AI is going to continue to propagate and insinuate itself into every facet of humanity, because it is in the interest of the many to be able to produce more for less, because there's more of us every day. But that doesn't change the fact that, the whole point of Star Trek 3 is, you know what? No, sometimes you pick the few over the many. Sometimes you go and save Spock, and to heck with the consequences. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. But it is a complicated question. Anyway, though, continuing. Quite honestly, the use of AI can be a cost saver, but I think the biggest reason... I'm repeating that. The ethical and perhaps legal implications... All right, so this is out of quotes. This is back to Nigel. Continues. The ethical and perhaps legal implications of using AI-generated art has caused some gamers to question their support of such practices. I appreciate you probably don't want to get bogged down into a discussion about the pros and cons of AI. Too late! But I was struck by one of the Board Game Geek users' comments, which said, "This hobby has become an industry which has gone from warm, fuzzy house you visit to feel good to a cold, indifferent factory that only exists to make money." And so Nigel's question is, Do you feel this hobby has become too big and too impersonal, or are we in danger of losing the human touch? No. Whoever said that, they are wrong. That is not true. Because at the end of the day, what AI is doing in this case is facilitating more work to be done by fewer people. But at the end of the day, the artists working on Prelude 2 have posted on Board Game Geek, and most people are ignoring that post, where he's saying, no. This is still human art. This is still art that has a soul. This is still art that has intention. This is just better art than we would have been able to compromise our own. But we are still human beings driving the creation of this art. I mean, not for nothing, it's an art form in and of itself to actually get anything good out of Midjourney, anything useful. And all it's doing is, they've said, look, we are basically replacing concept artists, which is a concept that, again, I know from the video game industry, but the board game industry, there are no margins for, literally, somebody whose full-time job is to do concept art and nothing else doesn't exist. There's not enough money in the board game industry to do that, even though it's an incredibly common thing in the video game industry. So artists have to do double duty. Your concept art is your real art, right? With just more iterations. And now, no. We can get the concept up and running that much faster, which means we can produce more with fewer people. But it's still people driving it. There are still human beings doing their best with Terraforming Mars, Prelude 2, to make it special and meaningful and an expression of their own creative energies. That hasn't changed at all. It's only that there are now fewer human beings involved in the process because some of the process steps have been automated. And that has happened for manufacturing cars and harvesting crops and reviewing legal briefs and writing sports copy and, again, pretty much every other facet of human endeavor that we know of. We're all going to go through it, which means we need a species-wide reboot. And that's what's going to happen. But it doesn't mean that humanity has been taken out of the process at all. And I do not believe humanity will ever be taken out of the process. It doesn't matter that, again, in the future, in the perfect Star Trek future, where you can just walk onto the holodeck and say, hey, make me an awesome Sherlock Holmes mystery, and the computer will do that, and everybody will love it, and they'll have a great time until it gains sentience and tries to take over the Enterprise. It doesn't change the fact that people still want to tell their own stories using the tool of computer AI in that future. Nobody ever watched, scenes of in Deep Space Nine and whatnot, or Data. Data was an artificial intelligence painting paintings. And what does that mean? He was struck by the creative urge. That's never going to go away. We are not going to lose what makes us human. What's going to happen is we're going to go through a transition process where we can't get paid to do the things that make us human anymore. And so we will have to rearrange all of our fundamental concept of supply and demand to ensure that everybody's needs are met from the moment they're born to the day they die with total equality. And then people do things because they love it. Not because, well, I need to feed my family, and if I get lucky enough to do something I love, I got the lottery. It's a better future, but it's going to be a rocky road to get there. And that's the reality of it. And we are on to gaming questions with Jen. So hang on, everybody. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, we are back. Jen is here. Hi, honey pie. Jen, Darren asks, all games are different, of course, but assuming the mechanisms match the history, do you have a favorite nation you would want to play in a Civilization game?
Ooh.
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, I'm not sure. Now, there's a few ways to look at it. You can kind of think it through a modern lens, but really, for the most part, when you play Civilization, it's always like, you're going to be ancient Mesopotamia, you're going to be ancient Egypt, you're going to be ancient Greece, it's more about those. But I would think you could probably say, well, would you rather be Europe, or would you rather be South America, or Mesoamerica? I'm not sure.
I think I would rather be a small society finding their way and learning about art.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever true historical societies were driven by the pursuit of art and beauty above all else is the one you want. It's just whichever one that is.
It became prosperous enough that they could have specialists.
Yeah, but you would want that for any nation. I mean,
of course.
So I mean, basically, you're going very broad, and you cannot think of a specific nation. It's not like when you sit down and if you were going to play a game based on Marvel superheroes. Oh, I love Miss Marvel. I want to play Miss Marvel. Okay, I don't care about the rest. I like Miss Marvel. You can't think of the same thing for like nations.
Well, I've always been interested in the Egyptians and the Romans.
Yes.
So I think those are interesting to me, as opposed to maybe Vikings or Greek merchants or something like that. I guess Atlantis has always perked my interest.
All right, that's a fair one, I think. Sure, why not?
I guess the sea traders of Venice have been interesting, especially because they're glass-oriented sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess that would probably be the ones.
All right. I honestly, I don't think I can't think of one. I can't think of anything I gravitate towards. I gravitate towards whatever mechanisms they have. Oh, what makes this one interesting? You know.
Me too. The gadgets.
Yep. It's a good question, though. I'm sorry. I wish I could come up with one. I've been sitting here this whole time trying to think of one, and I can't. I thought maybe Jen would spur me to something, but she had better answers than I could come up with. Alrighty. Exterminate is your least favorite of the 4 X's. Explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. You know, it's a civilization-style game. How do you rank the other 3? So, exploring, expanding to the place you explored, and then exploiting, getting stuff out of where you've expanded into.
Well, I hate the word exploit.
I know, but I mean...
They're just using it as a given.
Well, just because it's an old video game term that, you know, it's the 4 X's. Even though none of those words start with it's the 4 EXs.
Yeah.
But yeah, a 4X game is one where you explore, then you expand your civilization into where you've explored, then you start exploiting it, and then inevitably you start fighting other players and exterminate them.
Yeah.
So, what are you more drawn to? The idea of exploring a new land and seeing what's out there, building up a thriving society, or running that society and taking it to the next level and making everything nice and efficient?
I guess probably I am the efficient one. The
third
thing.
one.
Yeah.
So that's the exploiting.
I know. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. But, you know, ethical exploitation is what you're all about.
Well, or it could be that our civilization has gotten so beautiful and wonderful that now we can do art and specialize again.
So anyway, so you put exploiting number 1. All right, now you wanted to rank them all. Would you rather exploiting, or would you rather explore or expand? The whole, hey, I don't know what's out there, and I'm just a voyage of discovery, or I found out what's out there. I'm going to start building things on it. Which would you rather do? If you could only do one. A map that's already full and it's waiting for you to build all the infrastructure, or a map that's empty waiting for you to find out what's there.
Oh, both of those are very appealing.
Sure. But you must rank them. Darren has spoken.
Okay, I'm going to go with explore and then expand.
Explore? Really? I thought for sure you'd be expand. I thought for sure.
Yep.
Okay. Can you say why?
Because I like to explore and see what's out there and maybe claim the good stuff first.
Okay. You like the race element of it, you're saying?
Yeah.
All right. That's interesting. I would probably actually say of the 3, I would like expanding the most. Building up a thing. I like to build stuff. And I'm happy with, after I've built it, the game is over. The exploiting is, okay, here's the thing. Now I got to keep using the thing. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of ready for the game to be over.
Crush you because I'm going to be more efficient.
If only the game were over now, I might win because I did an amazing job of expanding. But she's going to start exploiting if I don't get out of here fast.
Let's end the game.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
I say.
And I would actually put exploring at the bottom, just because it's more prone to random chance.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just less drawn to that.
Okay.
All right, good question, Darren.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Joseph says, which do you prefer and why? Roll-in rights or flip-in rights? Or flip-in fills, as they're also sometimes called. What's your favorite title from each genre? So, you understand the question? You know what a roll-in right is, right?
I'm just trying to
you roll some dice, could be any number of things. You draft them, you group them, whatever it is. But then ultimately, they create a random seed of data that you use to write stuff down.
Yep.
Maybe you're writing maps, maybe you're filling in things, maybe you're doing formula, whatever. But the important thing is you're rolling dice and then writing them down.
Okay.
The alternative is you're drawing cards.
Ah.
That's the randomization element. And then based on what those cards say, you're writing stuff down.
Okay. Well, I know you're going to prefer the flip and fold, whatever it's called. Flip and flop. What did you call it?
Well, he called it flip and write. Some people call it flip and fill to keep the alliteration. Roll and write, flip and fill.
Yeah.
I just call them all roll and writes, and I don't care. And oh, surprise, there were no dice. It was cards. Who cares? Roll the cards. I don't care. They're the same thing. It's almost inconsequential. They are a randomization method. I would like bag and rights. Oh, you pull things out of a bag. Tower and rights. You drop things into a tower and they come out. Any randomization, random and right, they're all the same to me.
Okay.
But which would you prefer?
Well, it seems to me like if you're actually drawing cards, if they're, like something is going on as opposed to just, oh, that's the card with the number 6 on it. Mm-hmm. That actually cards might be a little less luck driven, like rolling die is.
Well, the main thing is, with a deck of cards, you can count cards. You can say, oh, purple hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
There's a 1 in 3 chance that the next card is going to be purple, and I need to be ready for that.
Yep. And same with the tower and drop or whatever.
Oh, yeah, if it holds, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I would.
And come to think of it, why hasn't there been any kind of roll and write with a Shogun tower for dropping cubes and holding them? How has that not existed yet? That's crazy. Now that I think about it.
Get going, people.
Yeah, somebody. But anyway, go on. Sorry.
So I'm thinking. Ow.
And I'm sorry, Gert. You're going to have to go.
Aw.
Everybody, say hello to Gert. Oh.
And Kurt's just, what is going on?
You're leaving, Gert. We're
Yeah.
closing the door because you're very distracting.
She is distracting. So I think with these kinds of games, I think I would prefer to have some kind of game element that's controlled, even though it's a randomizer, as opposed to just a rolling of the dice.
Okay.
So I would think if I know that there's, 6 purples and 6 greens and 6 blues that are going to come out, and you can count them.
So you prefer the dice?
No,
I'm sorry, the cards. Yes.
Yeah.
I have to admit, my gut instinct is to go with that as well, but the tactile nature of dice is more fun. It is fundamentally a more fun and engaging activity to roll a die or dice.
Yeah.
The more the better than it is to
And then you make fun of me.
reveal a card.
You make fun of me though with the way I roll my dice.
It's because you get a little carried away.
I like to roll
I also
my
make
dice.
fun of you for the way you reveal your cards too.
Oh.
Because you certainly inherited from your dad that every time you put a card on the table, you have to bend it and so you can snap it down and warp them all. And I don't know why that's necessary, but you do it. You can just take it and you can just put it on the table. It does not have to be warped. You don't have to get that snap sound.
I do.
See, but that just,
Apparently.
the fact that you need to chase that snap sound means you really are missing the tactile nature of rolling a die and making the noise and stuff.
Could be. Yes. Well, it is fun to roll dice, though. Mm-hmm. So.
Yep. I think it is. But at the end of the day, I think there's still just more you can do. A card can have so many different things on it. A card can have multiple halves. A card can have 2 sides with multiple things. A card can hint what it's going to be, and then you reveal what it is. A dice, there's just not that much you can do with them. And while there's no denying they are more fun to roll, there's just not they're not as much fun to play with. So I would have to go with flip and fill as well.
Okay, well, what's your favorite?
What's that? Oh, right. Oh, you also asked for favorites. Well, you're not going to be able to. Can you? Well, okay. Can you think of a? Forget about the 2 of each. Just any game where you're writing stuff down. Is there any of them that made a strong enough impression on you that it might actually bubble up to your brain? Oh. And it's fine if not, because this is not your profession. You don't have to memorize this stuff.
I don't know. I'm just looking around.
Let's see here. If I come over...
You know what I like. Tell me what my favorite would be.
Well, I don't know. We've never done a top 10 list of this together. I do hear somebody pawing at the door, though.
I know. Somebody needs us desperately.
Is she okay?
No.
I don't need white fur all over this black tabletop.
I know.
Let's see. What was I just going to go?
I think that's Daisy, actually.
Going to go to advanced search, and I was going to go to owned by Rahdo, and going to filter by, what's it called?
Roll and write.
No, it's called because there's the roll and write, but it's like pen and paper, I think, or paper, or just paper. Is paper in it? Paper and pencil, which of course that's Not quite true, but it's as broad as it gets. So, off the top of our heads, if everything is labeled correctly, here's the paper and pencil games we have. Paper and pemper. Popper and purpers and poppers. Alrighty, so on tour, you remember this one?
Oh, yeah.
You remember? Okay, just saying the word on tour.
Like it.
So that's a pretty strong recommender that just saying the word, and you instantly recognize now, right?
Yep.
The 51 and the 15 and making the path.
Yep.
So, Rolling Realms. We just played an expansion of this the other day. The game where there's 3 different mini games in front of you.
Oh, yes.
No. You like that one? No? Okay. On tour.
I mean, I liked it, but...
I think for you it's going to be on tour when it boils right down to it. Looking through all the ones we've got, and we've got a lot. I'm pretty sure it's going to be on tour. Now, here's the deal. Do you remember playing Sagrada Artisans? You remember Sagrada?
Was that the book?
Yes,
where we
it was
did
a book.
All of the things?
Yep, and you were making the stained glass. In the original game, you just drafted dice. They were colorful, and you put the dice out, and that's what made the pretty stained glass. But then Sagrada Artisans was a legacy game where you were rolling the dice, but then using colored pencils to pencil in.
Yeah, okay. I really liked that game.
Yep. Do you think more than on tour?
Oh, they're different. They're so different.
Yes, they are. There's a lot of really good ones.
Yeah.
I think on tour is probably going to be. I mean, I don't think there's any other one that you, if I just say the name of it, you'll instantly know.
Well, it's the Sagrada one I did. I'm just.
Remember the dinosaur one we played with Zoe and Zane in the RV? That was the dinosaur pen building one. You probably don't remember that. That was a hot day. Welcome to the. Yeah. I think for you it's probably going to be on tour, or maybe Sagrada Artisans because of the subject matter. And for me, it's probably, I don't know. I've got all my numbers here. They're just not in order.
Of course, Roll Through the Ages. I love, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, but that's how much that is nostalgia.
Yeah.
I mean, would you rather play Roll Through the Ages or would you rather play on tour?
Well, that's a really good game.
I'm sorry, could you speak up for the mic?
But this is different than the Roll Through the Ages that we've played. That's a special pen and paper one.
No, Roll for the. I mean, remember it was a rolling, right? I will show you pictures and it will come back to you. Because it had this thing, these pegboards that you kept track of stuff.
Yeah.
But it also had these sheets. Recognize those sheets?
Yes.
There you go. There was just this intermediate step. There was the rolling, then there was the
pagan,
the accountant, and then the writing.
As every great civilization
needs an abacus, and
I do love Roll Through the Ages, but I think in this case I am going to probably go with the tour.
On tour, and over Sagrada Artisans.
I loved it, but it was a bit same through the whole book.
Well, it wasn't fair that we played it back to back over the space of a week.
We did have to.
That game should be savored like a fine wine over time, and you just play one new mission a week over the course of a year. So, and me, I think the highest one I rate is Welcome to the Moon. That's an 8.59. Is there an 8.6 on this page? No, Isle of Cats Exploring Draws. They're an 8.7.
Oh, I remember we drew the cats on the boats, and you wanted to fill rooms.
Okay, I didn't think I didn't think you were gonna remember that at all.
You also wanted to draw over the mice, I think it was.
That is correct. Wow. Okay. Well, okay. Do you remember? It wasn't a roll and write. It was a flip and write. Do you remember that part of the game?
The cats?
No. See, here's the thing. You might be thinking of the original Isle of Cats instead of Isle of Cats Explore and Draw.
Well, I'm remembering the boats and the different shaped rooms in the boats.
Right, yeah. Those are in both games.
Oh.
The way it works is, on your turn, here are all the different things, and you're going to grab a column. You're going to pick those three or those three or those three, and then draw them in your boat. So you might be conflating this in your head with the original tile layer game, which was, geez Louise, Rahdo, Isle of Cats, Explore. I mean, it's a video. It's have all those useless pictures of people baking goods.
Cat goods.
Hey, everybody.
Yes. Come on. There's Ruel. And so, I mean, yeah, you were drawing it all in here, but you picked one of these rows or columns. And, hey, these are the different cats, but then you also get different special powers you could grab, too. And so you might be equating it to just Rahdo, Isle of Cats, which was a card drafting game where you were actually putting tiles out. They're colorful tiles and whatnot. But you did this like Seven Wonders draft, and then based on the resources you got, they were first come first served to get the cats, and it was still you're remembering putting them on the ship and covering up the rats and filling the rooms and all that.
Yeah.
But do you remember the writing version of it, or are you remembering more the original tile layer version of it?
Can you?
See, because here I am, I'm saying, hey, that green cat, and I'm making it this weird, funky. I'm having to recreate it instead of just getting this tile and putting it on a board.
Okay, I see that there's a functional difference with the pin, but what else? I mean, it's otherwise.
Well, the thing is, I have to pick these 3 cats, or these 2 cats in this power,
Yeah.
or this cat in that power, or these 2, this cat plus this cat plus this power.
Yeah, I know. But
And then new stuff will come
in
out.
the other one, you had the same.
The other
bunch of
one,
stuff that
the
you
other
could
one is
choose
a
from.
much more complicated game. It's you can't just sum it up that easily. There's like 5 different phases every round with a card draft, and then gathering resources, and then converting those into cages to catch the cats, and then finally getting the cats. It was like a very big. Whereas this is just simplifies and streamlines it all down to this.
I guess I'm remembering this because I don't remember all the cages.
Everything I'm
and
just
all.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yes. That there were actual cages you had to save up for to be able to get the cats
guess
and
not.
stuff like that. So yeah, okay. Well, but would you put this over on tour then?
No.
Still on tour.
Yeah.
On tour is the
On
wiener.
tour is totally different, I think, from most of these roll and writes because there was such a big area and also working with the numbers and having to be sequential and different routes and,
Well, let's see. There's like one more you might remember from looking at it. Rahdo Railroad Inc. Let's see if you remember that because we played this one a bit more than the other ones. Come on. So this one, zoom ahead where I've actually started building. You're building roads and railroads. Every turn you roll the dice and that tells you what kind of roads and railroads or dead ends or whatnot. And you're trying to connect all the outer cities and stuff like that. And the different maps have all volcanoes that will appear or lakes you're trying to fill in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This one, nope. So still on tour over everything. Looks like.
Well, this is very traditional what I think of when I think of roll and write. Actually, I don't really think of on tour as a roll and write, although I can see that it is,
You are rolling and writing.
Yep. But it's not the same kind of thing, I guess. So for me, it's totally different. And Sagrada really wasn't all that. It wasn't like that either. So maybe that's why they stand out more in my mind. And all the other ones kind of blend together because they're quite similar.
Yeah, and there's lots of them that you could just call spreadsheet games where you've just got like a sheet or sometimes 2 sheets full of tiny little things. And, I'll fill these 3 in because that'll give me a thing that lets me fill this in. And that's like really common. There's a lot of those.
There was one where you were on a bunch of different landscapes and sometimes you'd have to get on a bridge to get over to...
You're describing several different ones.
I know.
Well, for you, we're going to say on tour. And for me, it looks like my highest rated one is Sagrada Artisans. Because I really did like it. And it has so much variety with all those different panes of glass. And they put in a bunch more for the final version. And just right behind it is Isle of Cats, I think. And what's it? The Moon one. The Welcome to the Moon was also excellent because it's like 6 different games in one. So I appreciate you get a lot of variety out of it. Okay, moving right along. Julie says, what games would you save in a wildfire? Top 5, top 10. How do you decide? And would you and Jen agree or have your own lists?
Well, what games did you grab?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if Julie knows this. We did actually have to face this question. A wildfire came in less than a half a mile of our house, and we did have to evacuate. And we had less than an hour to get everything we cared about in the universe and drive away. And I did pick a few games, just a few. And Jen had nothing to do with it.
I was busy
Taking care of dogs and chickens and
glass.
important papers and the most valuable glass she had. How many hundreds of pounds of glass did we load into the car to drive away?
Probably about 200 pounds of glass.
Yep.
Felt like, anyway. Maybe it was only 100, but
Yep.
there's stuff that that's not made anymore.
Yeah, that's just rare. But can you think of any games?
Well, I would think Glory to Rome because that's not made anymore.
Good. Yep, I did grab Glory to Rome. I grabbed our copy of Glory to Rome.
Gosh.
Would that be your only consideration? Just rarity?
I think we've got some that like people have made us painted minis for and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I hope that you grabbed those.
I did not.
Okay.
It's a fair point, but honestly, I am embarrassed to say, and I'm sorry, Leva and others, that did not enter my thought process when we were trying to do controlled panic mode. It just didn't occur to me.
Fair enough. Well, I guess what would keep us happy?
What about the original copy of Pandemic that we played on the road to France?
Of course, we must take that.
Well, I mean, it didn't occur to you till I said it.
Well, I was just going to say, what games would we want to be playing in the aftermath of losing everything in our lives, except what we've got with us? So, probably just our top 10 games each.
Okay.
Because that would be what.
But most of them you can just get, and in theory, we'll get insurance money. Although we found out afterwards we were not going to get insurance money.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez Louise. Folks, that's not a game-related question, but if you want to know, send questions to questions@rahdo.com and hey, what was Rahdo talking about not getting insurance money when your house almost burned down? That's a whole story.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Gosh, I don't know. I guess you must have...
You got Glory to Rome. That's the single most valuable one we have that'll never exist again.
Yeah.
And it's a really good game.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was my thought process. I grabbed Glory to Rome.
Yeah.
I grabbed Shadowrun Crossfire because it was super tiny. I grabbed Runebound 3rd Edition because I have I forget what it's called, Shattered Bonds expansion, which is incredibly rare and goes for like $400 or $500 on eBay and stuff like that.
Wow.
Although, not for us. I mean, we liked the game, but I probably would have left it. But because there's somebody who's contacted me and said, hey, Rahdo, would you sell that to me? Because I can't get it. I'm like, okay, yeah, dude, I'll sell it to you for retail. And I'm like, oh crap, I wouldn't be able to send that to him if it could burn down. So I guess I better grab that one. And then the only other things I grabbed besides those three things were games we haven't played yet that publishers have sent us. And I'm like, oh crap. Well, I mean, I'd feel bad if I did not cover this game, even if I only have to do it with my phone because I didn't grab any of my equipment for filming or my microphones or anything.
Yeah.
But I did have a phone and I'd be able to continue to do my job and cover these games. So literally I grabbed about 20 games of all sizes that were just on the shelf in the other room. That is the shelf of, hey, here's all the stuff that's in the queue that we have to play so I can film it because publishers have sent it. And I just felt an obligation. Because I would have felt bad if they'd sent it and they burned up and before we'd had a chance to cover them in some form. So that was really my consideration. Two incredibly rare ones, and I did not grab the Pandemic one.
Well, you're right. If it's something we can get, we don't have to have the one we...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that... Honestly, I'm simply not that sentimental.
Yeah.
I mean, it's meaningful, and I given time, I might have thought about, I really should grab that too because of the meaning it has for us. And maybe a couple others like that. But in the real moment when we're like, okay, we got to go. We have to go. Why are we not gone yet?
Yeah.
I was like, well, okay, money. That one costs $300. That one costs $400. I promised this guy. And, I would feel bad if I did not make good to these publishers who sent us these review copies of games.
Fair enough.
So that's how it worked. And there you go. We didn't bring very many, though. Okay. And that will be the end of this session of the Rahdo Q&A. Thank you, folks, for watching and also for submitting your questions. Send me more to the email address questions@rahdo.com, and I'll get you covered in a future episode. And in the meantime, if you would like to hear some more, you're in luck. I have been doing the Rahdo Talks Through audio podcast for years now with my wife, Jen, and we have got hundreds of hours for you to enjoy. You can hit that big box that's on screen right now if you want to dive deep. Also, you can go on ahead and subscribe so you won't miss the next Rahdo Q&A. And thank you, folks, for watching, for listening. Have a very, very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.